The Tenant and the Furnace by Savage Messiah. From the moment I stepped into the apartment, I knew something was off. The walls seemed to sag under the weight of secrets, and the air carried a chill that seeped into my bones. Mr. Holloway, the landlord, had assured me that the unit was perfect. The previous tenant loved the place and never complained, he said with a toothy grin. But I couldn't ignore the signs. The furnace was ancient, rattling ominously whenever it kicked on, but it barely managed to heat the apartment. I called Mr. Holloway numerous times, only to be met with vague promises and dismissive reassurances. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, my breath visible in the frigid air, straining to hear the gurgling sounds that emanated from the bathroom sink. They were low and constant, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. My frustration grew with each passing day. The gnawing cold, the landlord's indifference, and those damn noises. It all felt like a cruel joke. And then there were the ducts. At night, I could swear I heard faint breathing coming from them, rhythmic and sinister. It started softly, barely perceptible, but soon it became impossible to ignore. I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, clutching my blanket, and listen to the soft, eerie breaths. One particularly cold night, I'd had enough. Wrapped in layers of clothing, I descended into the basement, determined to confront the furnace once and for all. As I approached the hulking machine, I could hear it, a low, throaty scream, like a wounded animal. The sound sent shivers down my spine, but I forced myself to move closer. The furnace was shaking violently now, the screams growing louder. My heart pounded in my chest as I tore off the hatch, desperate to uncover the source of the horrifying noise. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. There, chained to a small bicycle, was a man, emaciated, wild-eyed, and hopelessly insane. His legs moved mechanically, pedaling the bike that generated the meager heat for the apartment. A feeding tube ran from his mouth, snaking up into the plumbing of my bathroom sink. I stumbled back, my mind reeling in horror and disbelief. The man's eyes locked onto mine, pleading and furious. It was the previous tenant, trapped in a hellish existence, forced to generate heat for the apartment and subsist on the wastewater from the sink. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was why the previous tenant had never complained. I fled the basement, my mind a whirlwind of terror and rage. I could hear the man's screams echoing behind me, a haunting reminder of the unimaginable cruelty hidden within the walls of my apartment. When I reached my phone, my hands shook as I dialed the police, my voice frantic and desperate. But as I waited for help to arrive, the breathing from the ducts grew louder, more insistent, and I knew that the horrors of my apartment were far from over. The apartment had its secrets, and now so did I. The police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the gloom of the basement. I led them to the furnace, my heart pounding in my chest. But when we opened the hatch, the bicycle was empty. The chains lay in a twisted heap, and the feeding tube hung limply, dripping with foul water. The officers exchanged glances, their skepticism clear. They questioned me, their voices laced with doubt, and searched the entire building, but found no trace of the man. They left with a stern warning about wasting their time, leaving me alone in the freezing apartment. That night, the gurgling sounds from the sink grew louder, more insistent. The breathing from the ducts became a cacophony surrounding me in my bed. I lay there, paralyzed with fear, as a cold draft swept through the room, carrying with it the faintest whisper of words I couldn't quite make out. The next morning, I discovered muddy footprints leading from the bathroom to my bedroom, stopping just short of my bed. Panic surged through me as I realized that whatever haunted this place was not confined to the basement. I couldn't stay there any longer. I packed my belongings in a frenzy, my eyes darting to every shadow, every dark corner. As I hauled my suitcase down the stairs, I felt a presence behind me, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I turned around, but no one was there. As I reached the front door, I heard it, a faint, rasping breath, close enough to feel on my skin. I bolted, slamming the door behind me, and didn't look back. I moved across town, finding a new apartment in a bright, busy neighborhood. But the nightmares followed me. In the dead of night, I'd wake to the sound of that same breathing, the gurgling of the sink, and the faint, mournful screams. The landlord called me a few weeks later. He sounded cheerful, as if nothing had happened. "We have a new tenant in your old place," he said. "They love it, no complaints at all." Months passed, and I tried to put the horrors of that apartment behind me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I started following up on the tenants who moved into my old place. None of them stayed long, and none would talk about their experiences. They seemed haunted, much like I had been. One sweltering summer day, curiosity got the better of me. I returned to my old neighborhood, drawn by a compulsion I couldn't explain. As I approached the building, I saw Mr. Holloway showing the apartment to a new tenant. They stood in the driveway, the landlord gesturing animatedly. "And we've just installed a new air conditioner in the basement," Mr. Holloway said with that same toothy grin. "It's perfect for the summer heat. The previous tenant loved it and never complained." My blood ran cold. I knew the truth behind his words. The air conditioner, what new horror had misstep Holloway concocted to torment the tenants now? I approached them, my heart pounding in my chest. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling. "You need to know what you're getting into." Mr. Holloway's smile faltered. "Ah, Jack, long time no see. This is a private conversation." But the new tenant looked at me, curiosity and concern in their eyes. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, determined to reveal the truth. "The furnace isn't just a furnace. The previous tenant was chained inside, forced to generate heat. And now, with the air conditioner, God knows what he's done." Mr. Holloway's eyes narrowed. "That's enough, Jack. You've caused enough trouble." But the new tenant's face paled. "Is this true?" "It's true," I insisted. "Get out while you still can." The tenant hesitated, then backed away from Mr. Holloway. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I can take the apartment." Mr. Holloway's smile vanished, replaced by a look of cold fury. "You don't know what you're talking about, Jack. You're just trying to scare people." I turned to leave, feeling Mr. Holloway's eyes burning into my back. As I walked away, I could hear the faintest whisper of breathing from the ducts, the gurgling of the sink. The horrors of that apartment would never truly leave me. And somewhere in the basement, the air conditioner hummed to life, bringing with it new, unspeakable terrors for those unfortunate enough to call that place home.